Hey everybody out there on the internet, welcome again to another edition of Give It a Shot, Spotlight Edition, and today I'm tackling a video that has been in the mystery box for some time, in fact since the beginning, but I figured, you know what, this time around I'm just going to take it on, get it out of the way. I feel like it's about time that I take care of it. I mean, I've been doing this for almost a year and it's been there since the beginning, so why not knock it out? So I'm talking today about Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Goes Green. For those of you who don't know, Sonic had two animated series back running concurrently in the early 1990s. Both of them, I believe, were called Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe they both were. This one is the more serious of the two. There was the other one, which is more slapsticky, more comedy-driven. This one is way more serious. This is the animated series that is derivative of the comic book series, which was written by Archie Comics for a number of years. I know it wasn't that long ago that they actually stopped making comics for Sonic the Hedgehog by Archie. So this series is based on that stretch of comic books. Now, the running consensus has always been that this was the more serious one, and it's a little off-putting because, again, both of these series were concurrently running, and it's even more jarring to know that the Sonic the Hedgehog character was voiced by the same person in both. For those who don't know, that was Jaleel White. It's really weird when you think about it, but also at the same time, kind of like, okay, it kind of makes sense because Jaleel White in the early 1990s was this really big character actor. Most people know him as Stephen Urkel on the show Family Matters. That show basically survived because of him. They were facing cancellation, and the introduction of his character kept that show going. I think they introduced him in like season 3, maybe, and then after that, the show ran what seemed like forever. Because the show no longer focused on the family, it was more like, what is Urkel doing? Because Urkel's the wacky, nerdy neighbor next door. In his prime, Jaleel White's still popular in aspects, but one of the things he was doing as well as being this nerd character was voice acting. And getting him to, for whatever reason, I don't know who thought it was a great idea, but they hired him to be the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. That's going to be the first thing you note as you watch this. It's kind of, once you know what or who Jaleel White is and the character he's most known for, it's a little off-putting that one of the nerdiest characters on television is voicing one of the coolest characters in video games at the same time. So you're like, okay. Like, I didn't watch this when I was younger because it wasn't on TV, or like its availability for me was limited because I think this is when we first got cable and I just never saw it. So what's this one about in difference to the other one? So Sonic Goes Green, I really don't, first of all, this DVD is loosely based on like one line that I saw out of the one episode that I watched.
Ew, how come the big city smells so yucky?
Because Robotnik's factories hurl tons of crud into the sky every day.
I watched the very first one on here, which is called Heads or Tails, which I'm assuming is the I guess you could say, pilot episode, because there's a lot of exposition that's going on in this particular episode about certain things.
Isn't that one of those fetid little freedom fighters?
Affirmative, sir. His name is Tails, and he is usually accompanied by Sonic.
The idea of the power rings, and the robots, and Sonic's contributions as a freedom fighter and things like that. Like the reasons why he's fighting. Stuff like that. So it's like...
Hey, Sonic! How come you're the only guy who can use the power rings?
My Uncle Chuck invented them for me so I could bring down dorks like Robotnik.
I'm assuming this had to be the very first episode because of the way everything was sort of... not exposition dumped, but there are these explanations for things that, you know, if you've been in this battle for a long time, which that's the big thing about this, is these characters are fighting a war with Robotnik, and so you would think after years of doing this, or however long Robotnik has been in charge, you kind of know. So again, this is the more serious version. It focuses on Sonic and Princess Sally, who's nowhere in the games. In fact, all these characters aside on the hero's side, aside from Tails, these are all machinations of the Archie Comics series. So you've got a walrus in there. I can't remember his name to save my life. I want to say Rotor, but I'm probably wrong. Correct me as many times as you want, Editing Sam. There's Bunny, who has a southern accent for reasons.
Oh, honey pie, I think that's just Sonic. It's what makes him special.
I can't remember the snooty guy, because he reminds me a lot of Simon Belmont from Captain N. That same vibe where he has the hots for Princess Sally and regards her to her title, but, you know, he doesn't really do much of anything. There's this other cast of characters that contribute, but are nowhere in the games, which, you know, at the time, making a cartoon show based on a video game character, you know, those sort of things were pretty tough. Super Mario Brothers proved that point when they went to a movie, although if you watched the Super Mario Brothers Super Show or Super Mario Brothers 3, they did alright. Now, Super Mario World, not so much. But the stuff they did with Sonic back then was pretty good. I mean, it's like I said, the serious one I think did way better than the goofy one, which is I think the inspiration for Mean Bean Machine. I could be wrong. I can't remember. Sonic has not exactly been like my favorite thing. I've tried a number of times. I mean, I like Generations as much as I played it, but I go back to the contrite, tried and true version of... I liked 1, 2, and 3 with Sonic and Knuckles. I also liked Adventure 2, even though it's kind of buggy. But it was a good Dreamcast game. But all that aside, let's get into the story. So, again, like your pilot episode, things are getting explained. Characters are introduced. And you have these freedom fighters living in, I think it's called Knothole Village or whatever, who go into the big city and take down Robotnik. Robotnik has a pet named Cluck, who I get the reason why Cluck exists. Cluck is your supervillain's pet, which may or may not play a factor in the show. I mean, Dr. Claw has Fat Cat or Mad Cat. Dr. Evil has Mr. Bigglesworth. You know, it's just playing on that trope. But there's something wrong with that chicken. When it clucks, I hear a faint cock-a-doodle-doo, like in the afterthought, but it sounds like when it initially makes its noises, like it has smoker's cough, which would be very fitting because it is a robot. Yeah. just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I get the feeling, also with this, there's this character named Snively, I think Snively, Robotnik's lackey, and I think eventually, if I were to write out this show in the way he is, he would, usurp Robotnik at some point, because the way this guy gets treated, which is pretty bad, and the fact that he has this remote control that he can push at any time to mess with robots, make them explode or whatever, or like with Cluck, its eyeball comes out of its socket, which, that's not horrifying in any way, shape, or form. The whole story revolves around Robotnik's almost beyond obsession of Sonic. Like, I almost want to say it's a fetish, because when you listen to Robotnik start talking about Sonic, his breathing gets shortened, almost like he's in ecstasy, like he's about to climax. Just listen.
What is the hedgehog?
I'm searching your head, Excellency.
Find him.
So yeah, it's really bizarre in that Robotnik has this robo hard-on for Sonic and stopping him at like all costs, and you find out throughout the entire episode that he's willing to pretty much throw anything and everything to get rid of this hedgehog, because to him he's like the threat that's preventing him from taking over the rest of Mobius.
It worked. There's the hedgehog. Bomber 1, the hedgehog is directly behind you. Forget the small one. Get Sonic. Get him. Get him.
Because what he controls is just this big city that produces stuff. I don't know what stuff, but they do, and it's apparently really toxic. And Robotnik, just like in the game, has made robots out of everyone and everything that's breathing. So you have that going on, and unlike the game where when Sonic jumps on a character, jumps on an enemy, it explodes and a little creature comes over, that doesn't happen. Like here, it's explained that in order for characters to no longer be a robot, they have to go in the roboticizer backwards.
Know what I'm gonna do, Mutsky? Change you back to a real dog. Chewing up furniture, chasing cars, drinking from the toilet, all that cool dog stuff.
Sure, we'll go with that logic, that you can just turn flesh to metal and metal to flesh. That's not a problem. There's nothing here about souls or anything, but animals are soulless creatures, so whatever. This is totally within God's plan. So none of this ever comes up to debate. Why question it when you're 8 and you're watching this stuff? I don't know, I wasn't 8 when this thing came out. I was in my teenage years. This was the 1990s, and by the way, this is 90s as hell. Cue the Sonic music part.
Hey, Sam, don't you call me a fool, 'cause baby, you know that I'm way past cool.
Yeah, it's 90s. Sonic is borderline annoying with all of his little catchphrases and all his little annoying little lines. It's a lot to take in.
How do you like the entrance? The way I come flying in, hit the old Axl Rose pose right on the downbeat.
We're not going there yet. We need to finish the story. So, Sonic has Tails, and Tails is, always idolized Sonic, and he wants to do stuff with Sonic, so he gets to go with Sonic on this trip to the big city. And one of the things they get before they go into the big city is a power ring, which I know back then they really didn't have much to work with, and I guess using the Chaos Emeralds, which did exist back then, would have been a bit harder to sell. So the rings, which are more plentiful, it sounds just as good, but I mean, one ring, yeah, in the game, if you have one ring, you will be fine no matter how many times you get hit, so long as you get that ring back. But this thing is like, reminds me a lot of things like Popeye spinach or gummy berry juice, where really they're only used once per episode, and they just happen like at a convenient time, sort of deal. And then are explained away as to why you can only use one once a day or whatever. So there's that. I mean, that's a tried and true trait of cartoon logic. You know, Sonic goes in with Tails to infiltrate to get cotter pins for these catapults that they're working on. And in the midst of it, he discovers a new plan by Robotnik, who's going to basically drop Agent Orange on everything, which even the liquid kind of looks like Agent Orange, on the woods to kill all the vegetation so he can expose the hideout of the Freedom Fighters and wipe them out. I'd have probably come up with this plan a long time ago, but considering this is your pilot episode, it's a strong one to start with. I mean, yeah, deforestation. Get the little woodland creatures out in the middle of nowhere where they're out of their element, and then wipe them out. Makes sense to me. It's a solid story. It falls a little flat at the end because the cotter pins do help with the catapults and whatnot, but I guess to avoid violence, they get the bee drones get pelted by water balloons. Yeah, I get that. That works. Water and circuitry meshing, yeah, you're gonna lose that, but I don't know, it seemed kind of like a weak premise. And at the very end, I mean, granted it is a cartoon, but it gets a little too cartoony at times, where Sonic's breaking natural physics and stuff like that. Now granted, he is fast, but there's only so much you can do before you get too cartoony. So it goes through all of that, and I guess the bee-bots, or whatever they're called, get pelted with too many water balloons, and they're like, screw this, we're done, even though we should be obeying Robotnik. For whatever reason, they retreat, and it ends bad for Robotnik. Yay, Freedom Fighters. It's not bad. It does have a lot of the trappings of early 1990s cartoons. And one is the way they wrote Sonic, trying to be hip and cool.
Ballads, smelling, nuh-uh, no way, man. Ballads make me want to hurl. Ugh. Chunkage contained.
It is annoying. I mean, back then I'm sure that was cool to a 10-year-old, but now, when I watch it, I kind of cringe because I just hear Julia White trying hard, and it's just... it's just a lot to take in. There's a lot of familiar... This has a lot of talented voice actors in it. Welker and Paulson are in this. Kavanaugh is in this. They highlight Julia White because he's the hot thing right now, so it's almost like, look who has come from the heavens to grace us as Sonic's voice. And then, oh, by the way, here's all these people who are career voice actors that, voice your childhood. Yeah, they're here too. That was a little much. Animation-wise, it's pretty solid, but there's one thing. Actually, there's two things. One goes with the previous point about voice actors. This point goes with the animation. So, there is something going on with Sonic's eyes. Whenever you look at Sonic the Hedgehog as a character, as a mascot by Sega, I don't know how many of you notice it, but for me, when I see Sonic's eyes, I see this giant one piece, almost half hourglass thing. There's no divider here at his nose. It's just one giant white orb here that's kind of got a divider of sorts almost. I guess the animators couldn't figure out what to do with that, so what they did is Sonic doesn't blink like a normal human, like anything that's normal like that. Like, you know, you have eyelids, and the eyelids, you would think for a character with eyes this large, you know, it would blink big. No. Instead, what you have are his little pupils, his iris, whatever you want to call this, they blink. They squish down and then come back up. It's mildly disturbing at best. It's not pretty at all. And speaking of things that aren't pretty, the voice actor for Tails.
Okay, but it's a long way back to Knothole. So if a Buzz Bomber gets real mad and gobbles me up, I bet you're gonna feel just terrible.
Also leaves something to be desired. Tails, granted, I understand if you really want an authentic child's voice, you work with what you have, but Tails' voice sounds like they record it in a bathroom, and that emoting is a pretty hard sell for this kid. So, yeah, those are the two big hang-ups about this series. Or just about this episode, I should say. It's really not bad at all. It's actually a solid thing. The going green thing just gets lip service. With one line in the episode about Robotnik just creating crud. Like, that's it. There's no real talk about that other than the fact that he's evil because he's turned everybody into robots, which does bring out a really serious idea that I hope they fleshed out further on in the series. I think they do, where even though they're robots, they still have those moments of lucidity where they remember, oh yes, I used to be something prior to this.
Mutsky, have you seen Uncle Chuck hanging out? Someday we'll find him.
But then they kind of fade back in to being a robot, which that's really good. I give them kudos for that. That's like a hard topic to really wrap around as a child, but I think it's done real well here for the most part. So it's got some really good parts, and then the bad parts aren't deal breakers, but they're noticeable. There's something that, whether just constraints or what have you, you don't really know what to do with it, because yeah, an eyeball that big like Sonic's, yeah, that would probably look a little weird when you're going like that, but you could have thought of something better than having his pupil blink. That's still a little creepy. So yeah, it's not bad. A little questionable at times, and it was only like one shot, so we only got to Nikki. So yeah, it's serviceable. It's passable. I wasn't expecting it to be awful. I thought maybe it would have been a more environmental episode, but it really wasn't. I guess it was, who made this thing? N-Circle and Cookie Jar. They got the rights to this because on the insert they also have stuff for the Super Mario Bros. Super Show and The Legend of Zelda. So I guess they got the rights to this stuff. And they have other stuff that, they got a lot of Deke materials here. They also have Heathcliff and some other bastard version of Inspector Gadget here, which I don't want to ever watch, although I guarantee you I probably will. Oh, Gadget Boy, that's what it's called, because that looks like it's fun. Something tells me In-Circle Entertainment would give me a whole lot of ulcers. So, yeah. God, something tells me I'm going to end up looking at a lot of stuff by Encircle here in the near future. But for now, Sonic Goes Green, one shot, not the worst possible thing. I hope you enjoyed my new decor. Again, this is sort of in a pinch. Still trying to get things set up since my move. And yeah, I'm in an undisclosed location, but I got a tiger curtain, so you know I'm someplace awesome. So until next time, kids, toodles.